Welcome back, everybody. Monday morning show off and rolling here as we start a new week. Excited about our guest lineup, not only today, but the rest of the week. We got some fun guests we're looking forward to with everybody in the pool, everybody practicing now. Football going in Minnesota, North Dakota. I think South Dakota started too. So welcome to the party, pal, to quote my guy John McClain on what's going on. What's going on? It's Monday at 9:35, which means Sam Herder joins us from Hero Sports. BetMGM is we are officially on countdown watch. We've been doing this for about 100 days, but today we're 12 days out from week 0. So this is the last Saturday. Do you have anything planned to enjoy this last Saturday? Because next week we got games.
Yeah, nothing too special. Probably just enjoy the day and figure out some things to do, because after that it's all the way through January, and it's football season, so it's getting here earlier and earlier, and a handful of decent week 0 games this year, and then starting next year there's going to be a whole host of football games, not only this Saturday but Thursday and Friday as well. Next year there's going to be FCS games, so next summer will feel even shorter, I guess.
So just plan something with your wife now, say thanks, and then goodbye after Saturday.
Yep.
That's what I'm planning on doing. I'm just letting everybody know that's the plan on that.
Yep. See you in January.
You reported late last week in talking about week 1, which I'm not saying week 0 anymore. It's week 1 starting next year. The Big Sky is going to do something different with its schedule. Talk to us about what you're reporting on that.
Yeah, so with next year, as many people probably know, the week 0, what it usually has been week 0, is going to be the new week 1 for the FCS, where the FCS can play that earlier week, starting that Thursday, actually, not just Saturday. And so the FCS can now play 12 games every year. I know some years, like this year and last year, the FCS has been able to play 12 games because of the calendar. But now, no matter what the calendar looks like, the FCS can play 12 games. And with that as well, being able to play, this new week 0, which is now going to be the new week 1, and the Big Sky. I mean, this became official like earlier this summer of being able to play on week 0.
Yep.
So that's a pretty tight window to all of a sudden, we can schedule an extra non-conference game. How are we going to go about doing that? The Southland was first to announce that they're going to move from 8 to 9 conference games. And then the Big Sky during their media day also announced they're going to move from 8 to 9 conference matchups. And what the Big Sky is going to do is, instead of trying to find a non-conference matchup for that week 0, they're just going to play a conference game to kick off the season. And so for I believe there's some Big Sky teams that have already scheduled to play that opening weekend, a non-conference opponent, so they have to work around that. But typically, what a typical schedule would look like for a Big Sky football team is you start the season week 0/week 1 with a conference game, then you play your 3 non-conference games, and then you play 8 conference games. So that's kind of what the typical schedule is going to be looking like, at least for next year. And I believe the following year as well is how they're going to kind of arrange this scheduling for the Big Sky.
It's interesting because the Big Ten did this a handful of years ago, if I remember right, where they opened with conference games. The coaches hated it because it's like, okay, here we go. We got a game that really matters right out of the chute. I don't know if you got any feedback yet from Big Sky coaches on how they feel about this is a big game, and it's game 1. And they're always going to say, well, every game's big. But this is different. It's a conference game right out of the chute.
Yeah, I haven't heard much feedback. Typically with this, it's usually going to be something that the ADs either vote on / the presidents vote on, and they probably got the feedback from coaches as well on what they would decide to do. But I think this is it's for sure going to happen next year, but then the year after that, I believe, and then maybe they'll reevaluate things a little bit. But it's hard to get non-conference games, especially in Big Sky territory where you're going to ideally want a home game. So I think maybe this could potentially just be a short-term fix on how to handle things. But a part of me is excited that, we can get some really Big Sky games, to kick off the season. Potentially could get a national TV game on a Thursday, and then a Friday, and then another one, that Saturday night. But initially when we found out that there was going to be an extra non-conference game potentially with this week 0 thing, your mind kind of went to, this could result in some really good non-conference games.
Yep.
But at the same time, scheduling those a year in advance can be difficult. And so at least 2 conferences that we know of are going to be just using this extra game to just add an extra conference game instead of an extra
Yeah.
non-conference game.
You make a good point, and on the earlier start as well, because traditionally we just been thinking Saturday, but now with the new rule, they can play 2 days earlier. That networks are looking for games, man. I would not be surprised if we have announcements coming over the next few months, like, hey, okay, here comes a game, and it's going to be on Thursday, August 27th, or Friday, August 28th, because there's nothing else going on. There's not even at that point. There might not be preseason games because they're done. That they want football, and especially if it's college football, they're going to take it.
Yeah, and that's probably the most exciting part of the FCS moving fully into week
Yeah.
0. And it'll be interesting too. You mentioned we should just call that week 1, for the FCS season. And I do kind of agree with you, but it would be a little bit confusing if, week 2 of the FCS season is week
I
1 of
know.
FBS. So it could be like staggering there. So maybe they just keep on calling it,
Ugh.
FCS week 0, then week 1, even though the full week of games is week 0. We'll see exactly how cadence that, but like I was saying, the most exciting part is the national TV opportunities, because not only is it the Saturday of week 0, but you can play Thursday or Friday. And there's only going to be a few FBS games that Saturday next year. And so there's a lot of TV window opportunities for the FCS to get on, ESPN, or maybe Fox Sports can flex. I know Fox doesn't really have any TV contracts per se with FCS conferences, but they could, flex something out somehow, some way. So I think that is exciting for next year. But as we've mentioned, most likely the FBS is also fully going to move into week 0, because they're going to see these, TV opportunities, and that could potentially move the playoff back a little bit, so it doesn't end, so late, into January. But at least for next year, I think we could see several national TV games for the FCS that opening weekend.
There was some legislation. I don't know if legislation is the right word. Just some more movement that happened late last week. I'm not sure if it clarified anything in terms of the teams, that there can be no conference change up for the next 5 years. Can you explain a little bit about what went down last? Because I had Bison fans blowing up my inbox like, "Oh, is this an opportunity here?" I don't know if it clarified things, Sam, for teams that want to move to FBS football.
Yeah, I think this doesn't really open the window or
No.
open the door, but it doesn't slam the door shut either. Because I think, not to get too into the weeds, but there's a new governance structure now in Division 1, and it pretty much gives the A4, which we pretty much call the Power 4 conferences, it gives them pretty much all of the voting power. They have weighted votes, and so if they want to move, certain things through the legislative, to pass, they don't have to wait on the MAC to vote. They don't have to wait on the Sun Belt to pass that through, or the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It was so many hoops to jump through, the pass through rules. Now with this new governance, if the SEC and all these Power 4 conferences, let's just say they wanted, and it's already in place, but let's say they wanted headset communication. A couple of years ago that passed, but they needed multiple, layers for that to pass through. Now, with that sort of rule, they could just, us 4 conferences want it, okay, it's passed. We don't have to worry about the G5 or the FCS. And there was a concern with what the A4 was going to do with this new voting power. Like, could they make the FCS to FBS transition fee $10 million?
Yeah.
Could they make rules in place that makes it more difficult to be an FBS member? Maybe they pass a rule that says you need to revenue share $15 million per year to be an FBS institution. Well, the MAC institutions would be saying, we can't do that. I guess we're going FCS.
Yep.
So there was a concern of, what is the Power 4 going to do with this power? What rules are they going to pass? And pretty much there was that kind of 5-year rule, or whatever you want to call it, where they can't change membership requirements. So they can't put a rule in there that would make it really difficult for the Conference USA members to maintain FBS status. And so that's really the main thing, is it kind of keeps things status quo. And so I know there are some tweets out there that, oh, this is the door that FCS teams have been waiting for. Not necessarily. It just, the concern of the FBS making it even more difficult for FCS teams to get in, that's not going to happen for at least 5 years. And so in that sense, it's helpful, but it's not all right, come on in, FCS teams. I don't foresee that happening with this 5-year kind of grace period, I guess.
Everybody's just looking for any kind of breadcrumbs out there to hopefully give them some hope on that. We've been doing this all summer long with you to look ahead to the Spotlight Games. We're now into October. We're looking at week 6 of the FCS season. and the first weekend in October. There's a couple that come up to me. The Bison going to Illinois State for a night game. Every time NDSU's gone to normal and Illinois State's going to be good, the Bison have just hammered them. So I don't know what to expect because, again, everybody is in love with Illinois State. That Ivy League game on a Friday night, Columbia-Princeton, is always fun because I like the Ivies getting attention on that. Of these four, anything stand out? Was there another game off the board for this particular weekend?
Yeah, I like that NDSU Illinois State one. It's interesting you bring that up though, because I was kind of toying with that too when I was voting. So I think I had Illinois State preseason number 6 nationally, and maybe I would bump them back to number 7 if I had to do it again. I'm gonna move UC Davis, up one spot, but because the thing with Illinois State is they won 10 games last year. Brock's back. He said he believes this could be one of their better teams they've had in quite some time, and they return a good amount of guys, whether it's their all-conference quarterback. They have 2 all-conference running backs coming back, top wide receiver. Defense has, a couple of all-valley players coming back as well. But when it came to, like you mentioned, playing the top teams, they got blown out. And so how good were they and how good are they going to be this year? And so that one does intrigue me for this week because it is a road trip for NDSU. I think it could be a challenge. But at the same time with Illinois State, we got to see them, hang with some of the big dogs before saying, oh, NDSU might be on upset alert that week. I would stop short of that. Another one too is Montana State going to Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona is a team where, they bubbled up last year. And sometimes when teams bubble up somewhat out of nowhere, you go, okay, they probably had a big senior class and then they're going to graduate and drop back down. Well, Northern Arizona has most of its starting lineup coming back. And so I think they're ready to take the next step. I do think that's a challenging road game for Montana State. They went there a couple of years ago, and almost lost and had to have a late game comeback. So that could be a tricky one for Montana State right there. So those are probably 2 that jump off the page, as well. Villanova is going to New Hampshire that week. New Hampshire can be a tough place to play. I like Villanova overall. I think they have a good amount coming back. Really, really experienced offensive line and, 2 young freshman running backs that are coming back for Villanova. So I think Nova could be probably, the top squad out of the CAA. But, that conference will have its upsets there as well. So that could be an interesting one that week.
2 last things with Sam. I'll go back. Illinois State, I did the deep dive on this, has not beaten NDSU or SDSU since 2019. You got to beat one or the other. For us, at least for me, and I think for you, to really be taken seriously, you got to beat one of the top Dakota schools.
Yeah, I think so. And, they had a good record last year, like we said, but, they weren't too competitive. And, it seems like we do talk a lot about, Illinois State, NDSU this week. It could be a tough one, but then it doesn't happen. There was the 9-3 quarterfinal game. What was that, 2019?
It was 2019.
I believe that was, one long touchdown run from Illinois State, winning that one, but that was just a defensive slugfest. That was probably the closest game they've had in quite some time. So the Redbirds, I think they have massive potential this year, but they have to show it on the field, obviously.
I got asked this at Bison Media Day. I thought I knew the answer, but maybe you do. With the Ivies now moving in, have you heard anything in the future talking about scheduling about them moving the start of their year up? They do not play the first 3 weeks of the season. Has there been any instance of them starting earlier in 2026?
I haven't heard anything. I had the Harvard head coach on my podcast, earlier in this offseason. I asked him about that, and he didn't really know or say much. Mostly because that's more of an AD, decision on, or actually probably more so of a presidential type of vote, to scoot things up further, because now they're going to be starting even later. If all of FCS is playing 12 games and playing week 0, and the Ivy League is still stuck with where they usually do 7 conference games and then 2 non-conference, or maybe 3.
Because they do not play the first 3 weeks of the season. So
and so once they kind of get a feel of how the seeding works, and you could have a 9-1 Harvard team, for example, and they get the number 11 seed. They're gonna be like, well, we're 9-1? What are you talking about? I was like, well, you beat 2 NEC teams and then you had 1 loss in the Ivy League. Like, that doesn't tell us enough. And so hopefully we've talked about this before, but with them being in the playoffs, I don't think they're going to compete right away. I think they might have somewhat of a rude awakening of, oh, okay, this is what it takes to win. And then maybe they adjust things of how they invest, how they set themselves up for good playoff seeds through non-conference scheduling. So we'll see if anything happens there, but I haven't heard if there's any momentum of either scheduling tougher in the non-conference or starting earlier instead of a few weeks after everyone else.
Because if you're looking for games and everybody is, then they're sitting out there. And granted, that costs money too, because you got to bring kids back, and there is the health risk of that, because the Ivy's been out in front on not practicing full bore. With they had tackling robots. I remember they did that story, gosh, a handful of years ago. That's an option, but if they're not going, then you can't play them.
Yeah, and I mean, this is obviously easier said than done.
No
but
doubt.
like NDSU and Harvard get together, do a home and home for week 0, pitch it to ABC. Like that's going to get on the Thursday of week 0 where when nothing else is on. Like that's going to get eyeballs, and so that's obviously easier said than just boom, doing it. But I mean, there are games out there for the Ivy League to go out and schedule.
Great to talk as always, bud. Next week it's game week, so we'll look forward to that. Thanks for the time as always. All right.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:30. We're getting closer, 12 days out from the start of the season, and as we mentioned, 2026, the season will be starting even earlier for the FCS teams. We'll break, come back, wrap up our first hour. Big second hour plan, including we'll head out to Castleton. They get ready for year 1 of 2A football. Back on a busy Monday. Hot Mike right after this.